It kind of worked for a little while, but then I got distracted by the perfect business plan. And then I thought, no. It's actually just like, it's the business plan. It's how I'm making money. If I scale this correctly, if I do this, and that will finally make me feel safe. If I have this consistent income, and that will finally be the thing. 20 years of searching for this balance with a mind that works really fast and a body that needs a little bit more time to, rest.
We grew up as the black sheep of the herd, right? So we always had to prove somebody that we were good, that we were worthy. By doing so, we tried to push the rhythms of a complete different personality, of a complete different energy profile. Everybody talks about, listen to your body and do this and do that, but what does it even mean? Hello there, here we are back at the Wholegrain Wisdom podcast. Today we're talking with Sheridan. How's it going? First of all, it's one of the first shows of the 2026. You're right back from some very interesting travels and holidays. So I feel you, and I see you all recharged.
Thank you. Yeah, India will do a whole thing to your life, but here we are back in Australia. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having us.
Lovely. Well, for anyone here back, or either the first time or not, this is a Wholegrain Wisdom podcast where we are reconnecting the dots between science and spirituality to finally share and understand that they're all the same truth, just expressed in different languages. And today we're talking with Sheridan Ruth. Let me make a very quick intro for anyone that doesn't know you yet. You're a somatic burnout coach, certified yoga therapist, and meditation facilitator. Also an author. You're the best-selling author of Somatic Intelligence for Success. And your work focuses on how the nervous system, emotional processing, and body-based awareness shape the way that we lead, make decisions under pressure, and create. Love that. For the audience of Wholegrain Wisdom, this is going to be very powerful because we talk a lot about the subconscious, about the fascia, about the traumas. You ultimately learned how to stop trying to optimize your way out of burnout and began rebuilding from the inside out, learning to meet finally your nervous system rather than to override it. I think this is a very recurrent situation and story among all of the high performers out there. So we're going to speak with you directly, all of the neurodiverse and ADHD or whatever other kind of like pumping the gas every time kind of person. This podcast is for you. So let me start the very first question. How did you get here? Like, what's your story? Kind of like wrap it up a little bit for us.
Yeah. So I think there's, like so many of us who end up in this place where we care deeply about something, there's a whole list of things that were hard for me that happened in life. And I think the one that the obvious one is that I don't have any hair. I lost my hair when I was a kid. But not important necessarily the details of that. It's more kind of the feeling that left me with was like that there was something wrong. And there was like something wrong with me. And I had to do something to make it better. And so I got really, I suppose, concerned with helping other people. I went into community development. I founded a nonprofit, really good, but I think it was coming from this place of wanting to heal externally so that I could feel better inside. Then I went into finance and I was like, well, I'll just make heaps of money and then I'll show how smart I am and how good I am. And then I went through my abusive relationship, ended up in an abusive relationship. My ex passed away from suicide shortly after I left. That led through kind of a period of time where I feel like I got to know a really dark side of humans. Pulled myself out of that through yoga therapy and somatic therapy and found myself being invited to provide yoga therapy. And then it's the online boom. And so everyone's like, you can do online coaching. And I was like, oh, wow, I can do this online. This is really fun. It felt so good. I had so much energy and it was so true and so good at the time. But I think I fell into this place where then I thought that being in the wellness space and like optimizing my body, and I did an Ayurveda certification and I became a wellness coach, and I thought if I could just heal all my trauma inside, well, then I'll stop feeling so exhausted. And it kind of worked for a little while, but then I got distracted by the perfect business plan. And then I thought, no. It's actually just like, it's the business plan. It's how I'm making money. If I scale this correctly, if I do this, then that will finally make me feel safe. If I have this consistent income, and that will finally be the thing. And I just, 20 years of searching for this balance with a mind that works really fast and a body that needs a little bit more time to, rest. I just kind of landed in this place where I still use the mindfulness practices, internal family systems, somatic trauma therapy, polyvagal theory. I really like science at the moment. But there's a real sense of, I think I've kind of, not to say that I've moved on to that part of healing, but I've come to a place where there's not a sense of striving for the healing and striving to get out of burnout. It's more like a conversation and a balance that you're having with your body in every season and with your business in every season. And that's landed me here talking to you and the amazing people.
Lovely. It sounds, every time these stories are kind of like touching familiar points, it's always like we get so brainwashed about putting the carrot stick in front of our eyes and then constantly chasing it and never getting it there until the point that you really believe, okay, wait a second, this isn't working. Let's try to really kind of like shift it upside down and try a completely different method. So for anyone that is here today listening to this conversation, it's not the first time that at Wholegrain Wisdom we talk about the subconscious, about the body, about somatic experiencing in general. But I think we may not have yet received like the perfect explanation of what is all about. Like, why do we need to care about this? Like, everybody talks about, listen to your body and do this and do that, but what does it even mean? Like, especially for people like us that come from environments and situations where I don't know if it was exactly like that for you, but for me, it's always been forget about the body. Like, don't listen to it. You need to kind of push your way out through willpower. So for anyone that is still there, that is still wondering, because, there may be the group of those that really got it. And from the other people, they seem like, okay, they're now living on a beach and they don't really work and they're happy like that. And they lost kind of like drive, and this fire inside. Is it that true? And how do you get to a sustainable path in that sense?
So I think there's two questions here, and I'm going to answer them on top of each other. First of all, this to ground us, this idea of somatic intelligence, so body-based intelligence. So your ability to sense, to interpret, to respond to the world through how you intake the world. We know that we perceive, there's what happens, so there's my hand in front of me, and then there's how I perceived my hand. And we know that we perceive things differently. That is shaped by, we talk about how perception is shaped, but all of these different traditions.
Go all in with science, absolutely. Don't hold back, no worries.
Well, it depends on it depends on the culture. It depends on even how progressive you want to get. So originally we had the 5 senses, right? Taste, Taste, hearing. Oh, you put me on this spot. I'm like literally thinking about it.
Yeah, all the 5. Yeah.
All the 5 senses, right? And then there's new science that came out that was like, maybe we have 32 senses. But what I am more interested in is something called neuroception. And neuroception is very closely linked to polyvagal theory. And we'll send you resources and references for all of this stuff. I'll make sure you have it in the show notes. And it's this understanding that your body is taking in information, then your brain has to process it. Some people feel a gut sense. Some people have clairvoyance abilities or clairsentience. So it's all of these possible abilities to sense, and it takes it in. Now, there's this great debate in philosophy and psychology, which is, do we even have willpower? And there are studies that show, and they've been replicated decades over, where someone would be, they're like hooked up to a wire and they're told to move their thumb when they see a certain object. So they're measuring their brain receiving the information of like the thing on the screen. Then they're measuring, so they're receiving information, then they measure when their thumb moves, and they measure when the brain sends the signal to the thumb to move. And what they found pretty consistently was that the thumb actually moves before the brain sends the information. And so then you find other studies that say the opposite. So we don't know, like, are we responding with our willpower? Are we responding automatically? And so what the invitation is with somatic intelligence, and specifically neuroception, is to stop thinking necessarily that your mind has as much control as you think, and start thinking about how your body, particularly your nervous system, meaning the nerves that run through your entire like sensory system all the way down to your fingers from your brainstem at the back of your neck, and your brain, in particular the limbic system, which is one of the older, like more central parts of the brain that talks a lot about or experiences and categorizes emotion and experiences and sights and sounds, is responding in real time. So when we say, listen to your body, when I say that, I'm actually asking you to go much deeper than listening to your body any other time that you've listened to your body. We do want you to look at, why your chest might tighten around a certain type of person, or why you don't drink water when you're thirsty. But I'm not saying listen to your body as in just drink water when you're thirsty, or if it makes you tense up, then you should move away. But go deeper and be curious about, where is that coming from? Is that tension coming from a deep, knowing that that person is not good for me? Is that tension coming from maybe for some reason that those patterns that person has remind me of a sense of insecurity I have? But to be more curious. And I think honestly, if we really take it down just to move through all of the different stuff, and it might sound to some people who like more logic, this might find difficult to think it's as this philosophical or spiritual, but any action that comes rooted in fear is going to create fear-based patterns in your system. And any action that, when you go deep, comes down rooted in love or truth or purity or whatever you might feel that thing is, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about somatic intelligence. That's the organizing principle of the universe, if you think about it in that way. And for some people that doesn't resonate, but you still know that feeling that I'm talking about. And you know that you've followed it sometimes.
Yeah, I feel like there are so many different angles that you can kind of look at this. If you want to go even deeper into the kind of spiritual energetic work, you can call into your astral chart data, your energy type of human design. I mean, every other possible tool on this, and it's so powerful, especially now with AI, because you can really, if you really want to connect the dots, it's way easier. You don't need to be extremely expert in all of these domains. You can really leverage this intelligence to really connect the different points. And there is a lot of powerful work that we are doing with the community at Wholegrain Wisdom that, of course, people like you, Sheridan, and many other practitioners are bringing forward. Now, I'm curious to understand, in the environment of entrepreneurship, considering especially that 73% out of all the founders, so the full majority, is neurodiverse. We said it in the introduction. How is this even more relevant for people like us that really have a big problem stopping and slowing down and listening to our senses?
There's two things here. I think number one is that entrepreneurship, the skills that entrepreneurship requires to be successful, and the study that we can link will share this, oftentimes tend to overlap with the skills that neurodivergent individuals have. And so there's this funny kind of like chicken and egg thing here. And so it's like it provides a space for you to follow your curiosities, follow your skills, to think really big. I think AI is really interesting for neurodivergent brains, but also there's some not very helpful parts of that. So we have to keep that in mind when we're using it and balancing that out as it relates to the body. But where neurodivergents in general really thrive when you have autonomy to be creative, when you can use your brain for problem solving that is interesting, when you can align with your specific way of thinking. So like maybe you like to really understand like the high level understanding of something, and then you can go really deep down into the problems. Or maybe you work really well in hyper focus sprints, and then you like to just kind of pull away. But there's necessarily kind of, I think for neurodivergence, when you give them enough support, enough support, but also enough autonomy and the right environment where you can connect into your intelligence, you're able to create things that nobody else would be able to create. And even if you look back into some ideas and theories and arguments as to why we even have neurodivergent brains, that's for a reason. So entrepreneurship creates and provides the environment for that to occur, and also those are skills that help entrepreneurship be successful. And also there are all of these risks and all of these difficulties about having a neurodivergent brain or a sensitive nervous system or whatever that might be, that make entrepreneurship maybe a little bit more challenging or a bit different for a lot of
how do you work with neurodivergent minds? Like if I would have to come to your studio or wherever you visit online or something, like, and we would have to start a process. Guide me through a little bit here, so maybe people can start to understand what does it really mean to do this kind of work.
I think the biggest thing is coming with a lens of curiosity. So I think my biggest gift is coming with real, genuine curiosity and kind of co-partnering with curiosity. And that makes it would make it easier for you to be curious about maybe some of the habits that you have. And we can be curious and say, well, like, how do we make this a super, like a superpower? How do we make the way that your body works or the way that your mind understands is a superpower? And I think the biggest thing is like, whenever I work with a client, the first month or so is doing a little bit of what we call a somatic capacity map. We do this as well, and I have a 5-week program that teaches this, which is literally just observing. We're just getting really clear about how your body responds to different scenarios, and not changing anything. And then we kind of zoom out and we say, okay, cool, this is how your body responds. We're not going to argue with this. We're going to build things that work around it. And we're going to set it up so that you can grow within it naturally. And that amount of freedom, like, wow, it gives you the passion to go. I don't know. Do you think that would be helpful, or how you would expect it to occur? Or are there other things?
Well, for me, the experience, it's been, I will answer you with a question, and then I'll tell you a little bit what I've been observing from my end. Do you feel that neurodivergence is something that can completely vanish in the right circumstances? Or is it something that is always there in the background and you just have to deal with it? Or know how to kind of like work with it, as you said?
I don't know. I think that sometimes it's like, we can't see exactly what's happening inside of the brain all the time. So I think it's more like maybe if you set up your life in a way that you really thrive, then the discomfort vanishes. And you might say that that's your neurodivergence vanishing, but it's really difficult to know. And also I think there's a lot of possibility and hope that, and I think, honestly, I think the reality is that there are certain parts of us that might identify with neurodivergent symptoms, and whether or not they are true neurodivergence or caused by trauma, when we set our lives up and we love and care for ourselves in a way that already starts to heal the nervous system and return it back to a safe place of security, then possibly it does change, because what happens is, like, your nervous system, your body becomes, your amygdala, the site in your brain, decreases in size, and your prefrontal cortex increases in size. So you have more capacity to be less impulsive. You have more capacity for executive function. You have less emotional roller coasters. You experience more secure attachments and better relationships. And these are all symptoms of neurodivergence decreasing. And it could be because you're providing healing to your body. But then we kind of end up in this like argument of, were you really neurodivergent in the first place? Right? And it's so difficult to know, but I don't know if it really matters, as long as you're happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for me, the kind of example, but of course this is absolutely biased and non-statistically relevant for me. I recognize very lately of being ADHD. I always been kind of like the weird in the room, but I never got like into the path of being diagnosed and so forth, so on and so forth. And since I started living in nature all day long, all year long, I completely changed this kind of patterns, plus all of the work of healing the traumatic experiences trapped in the fascia of the body. Like, these two things together, they created something that not even 10 years of meditation brought me even close to getting there. So
yeah,
kind of like my theory, but of course this is more kind of, it's more of a vision than a theory. It's like, I always make the example that in the past, in tribal societies, neurodivergent individuals, they were not they were not treated, they were not like excluded by the group. They were actually brought to the shaman because they were recognized as having special powers, and the shamans were keeping them and training them to become the next generation of healers. So right now the Western society just puts you on meds, or in other situations, they kind of stereotype you, right? Instead of recognizes, as you rightly said, those are powers. This could be powers.
Yeah, and it like pulls you and tries to say, be more like everyone else. And I resonate with what you're sharing, and there's no scientific background for it, but I struggled with ADHD. I left the country. I just created my life to just follow. I did as soon as I started doing I was really struggling emotionally and like with really deep symptoms. Then I started doing all of the somatic therapy, spending more time in nature, had years where I didn't identify at all with any of the symptoms. Absolutely not a problem. Just living my life, everything working really well. Came back to Australia immediately as soon as I started functioning in this. I didn't really have a large community, and I was like trying to like, I guess, like put myself back in the city in the 9 to 5 and like kind of like make myself work in this neurotypical environment. That was actually when I got my ADHD diagnosis, because I was like, this is just not working and I can't figure out why. And yeah, I think that there's validity in that. Yeah.
What do you think today are the most misunderstood traits or actions to be taken when you, not necessarily when you're diagnosed, but also just when you know that you're different, and you get angry often, easily, or maybe your head is all over the places, you're overstimulated. Like, what have you felt so far in your own work and your own research that is like kind of like the common knowledge or the common message that you might see anywhere suggested by anyone versus what really, really works in your experience?
A lot of things that are coming up for me, but I think the one thing is, I think sometimes we forget that the body works in cycles. And what I try to advocate for is allowing yourself to know and work in your own cycles. And for some people, that means a lot of boundaries, and it also means a lot of understanding how to communicate with others based off of needs. And so Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication is really helpful for this, because what I notice some people doing is they're fighting with themselves and they're like, I'm really hyper-focused and I feel like I shouldn't. And I'm absolutely not saying that to deplete your body because you're hyper-focused. I just did a podcast episode on why we don't do that and how to stop doing that using somatic practices. I'm not saying don't sleep. Sleep is the most important thing that you could probably care about. If you do anything this year, just try to sleep better. But I think learning your cycles. So if you tend to have more energy for this thing at this time of day, or if you feel more inclined to work 2 days a week, 4 days a week, or there will be periods in your life where you will want to work many days a week, having enough capacity, like body-based capacity inside, and this is where the somatic therapy comes in, to not judge yourself for it and not let other people's opinions about what you should be doing fall in on you. I know a lot of incredibly intelligent neurodiverse founders, and they'll go through phases where they just want to work 12 hours a day, and then they're just like, I'm actually done for a few weeks. And I think it's healthier to respect that instead of calling them like unbalanced or unhealthy. So because then we're creating a second wound on top of what we're already experiencing, which might be difficult in and of itself. So I think learning about that, listening to that, when we stop being true to the energy that's flowing through our body, that's when we start experiencing burnout.
Yeah. Can we just summarize and say that industrialization fucked us up completely? Because if you think about it, like I was watching, I was connecting the dots and going back into the past. This is really like the essence of Wholegrain Wisdom, because it's not just about the science per se, but it's also understanding how we were doing things in the past. And we completely lost track of the moon cycles in the West. We completely lost cycle of the equinoxes and the other period of the year, I don't remember, like the cycles of solar. And then we have absolutely no idea what's happening in terms of like astrological energies that are interfering with the electromagnetic patterns on this planet. We're not following seasons in the majority of cases, unless you're eating healthy. Then in some cases you may know that you should be eating tomato instead of cabbage or something. And then you're being forced to be living in an office with artificial lighting that fucks you up even more, the circadian rhythm. I mean, if I can get anything from what you just said, is like, if you need to learn how to follow your cycles, you need to also understand what are the cycles around you.
Yes, absolutely. You start with this is why nature is so important. You went to nature. I found cycles. I think I started through my menstrual cycle, and that bled back to nature. And I think you learn the cycles. We're almost like coming back to them in different ways. Like you went maybe to nature. I went to the cycle within my body, in the day, in the month, maybe within the year, and then externally. But it's such a problem. And I think this is like literally the crux of the work that I do, which is like every single day I just sit with people and figure out, how do we do this thing where I'm attuned to the nature in me, in the job that I really care about that happens to be in a city, with a family that I really care about that happen to also be in a city, and I know this money and I want that, and like no, and all of these things. Like, how do I be attuned to nature without like, no offense, but like running away to Bali because we can't all do it.
I know. But sometimes it's probably all in our minds, considering all the circumstances that we create for ourselves. But I'm curious to understand a little bit. I remember, so when we chatted before this interview, I discovered you are also a researcher. You're doing some research at the Monash University in Australia. Is there any other data that you feel relevant for this conversation that you guys discovered through your work?
What we were exploring was this idea of whether or not you're pulled because of neurodivergence, and this one was specifically also disabilities such as, well, what would be called a disability as dyslexia and obsessive compulsive personality disorder and sensory processing sensitivity. And we're exploring this idea of these barriers to entry, including ADHD, to the normal working environment. And this concept and the idea of like, are you being pushed into it, you don't have a choice, or are you being pulled into it because it's the correct place for you to land? And I think what is interesting is there's 35% in the US, 35% of entrepreneurs have dyslexia. And that's a really, really large proportion. I think there's something like 27% as well with ADHD. There are a couple of studies that actually found that was consistently true more for males rather than females. So more males with neurodivergence were pulled into entrepreneurship. So I think the inquiry isn't necessarily like figuring out is this me or not, but almost making an assumption that, yeah, you might be different. And coming back to what we were speaking about before, which is you might be different, therefore do it your way.
Yeah. This is a great piece of wisdom, especially because I feel like neurodivergent people are always chasing the external validation of feeling normal, because we kind of we grew up as the black sheep of the herd, right? So we always had to prove somebody that we were good, that we were worthy or whatever, capable. And so by doing so, we try to push the rhythms of a complete different personality, of a complete different energy profile. I would say complete even metabolism.
Yeah. And this is when we come back where it's like, do it your way, but don't forget to do the internal work of releasing this idea that you have to push, or that you have to strive, or that you have to prove something. Because a lot of us end up in loops in our head thinking, I have to prove this thing. And this is where we come back to the idea of perception. You're perceiving the world through perhaps a wound of, I have to show you that I'm smart enough. I have to show you that I can. I have to make this thing work so that they see me, because I wasn't seen for the skills that I had. So that is clouding the perception, the emotions that you have, the thoughts that you think. And we can only think so many thoughts at a time. So by removing, releasing, processing, healing, integrating, whatever the word is that you want to use for that, with somatic practices, whether that is a yoga practice or a somatic therapist or spending time in nature, I don't care your modality, but pick one and do it regularly. That will actually create the space inside to find all the new thoughts. And I think you might resonate with this feeling of like locking on, like you're able to kind of use your skills when they're not locked on to healing trauma and resolving a pain from your childhood. You lock them on to resolving whatever this problem is in your business, because there's the rest of the other statistics, which is that, about 95% of businesses fail within the first 3 years, and most entrepreneurs are paid less than minimum wage in their respective country. That's also something that we need to speak about, and that's not fair or something that we want for anyone listening.
Yeah.
But it's what happens when you can't put your energy towards solving the right problems.
Exactly. I think if there's one takeaway of this conversation, is that A, yes, you're different and it's not a problem. It's actually a very good blessing. But B, you need to put on the work, because all of this being different, if it's kind of like directed in the wrong direction, is gonna suck up all of these energies for survival needs instead of actually pursuing your purpose and your vision and your mission in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it.
Well said.
Love it. Thanks so much, Sheridan. It's been a pleasure. I don't know if there is any last words you want to leave, where people can find you, how can people support you, how can people work with you eventually. Let's just close up with some of these contact detail parts.
Yeah, I think for anyone that's curious about exploring the concept, if you put my name, Sheridan Ruth, into Amazon, you'll find my book, Somatic Intelligence for Success, and that will go into what it is that we're talking about and how to access your somatic intelligence. There's a 3 parts kind of introductory, and it's a lot of kind of how to, and kind of takes you through it really tangibly.
Lovely conversation. Thanks so much for sharing the data and the wisdom, and all the best.
Thank you so much.